Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Madeline No, and I'm from NetHope. We want to welcome you to another in our NetHope Solution Center webinar series. Today, our topic is FHI 360 Vine, Search Less to Find More and Do More Good. And today we're welcoming NetHope member organization FHI 360 and Techno Brain for our presentation today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to go over a few of our housekeeping guidelines for the session today. Please keep this session interactive. Post any comments or questions you have in the Zoom chat window, and we will go over as many of those in the Q&A session toward the end of our hour today. Also, look for a follow-up email with a link to the recording and the collateral for today's session on the NetHope Solution Center. And we always encourage everyone to please fill out our webinar satisfaction poll that will pop up as you close out of the session today. It gives us great feedback to make these sessions better, and also feedback for our presenters today. With that, I will hand it off to Alfred Selvaraja from Techno Brain to kick things off. Alfred?
Thanks so much, Madeline. Thanks to you and NetHope for hosting us today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We really appreciate your time. I am Alfred Selvaraja with Techno Brain, and I'm glad to be here together with the FHI 360 team to tell you about an innovative digital tool called FHI 360 Vine, which you've probably read on the synopsis, is helping FHI 360 employees be more productive by enabling them to find information faster through a modern and powerful search experience. So we're going to dig deeper into this topic in just a little bit. But before that, I am joined today, as I mentioned, by the wonderful team from FHI 360 that has been spearheading this project. I'm joined by Carla Doherty, who is the Director of Enterprise Services IT. I'm joined by Paula Pasderka, who is a Director of Knowledge Exchange, and Rajesh Handa, who is a Manager of Enterprise Application Design. Carla, Paula, and Rajesh are going to introduce themselves in just a little bit as they speak to their respective parts of the presentation. Like I said, I'm Alfred Selvaraja with Techno Brain. I manage the global nonprofit practice here at Techno Brain. We've been helping nonprofits implement technology for over 15 years, and broadly speaking, helping with digital transformation initiatives. We've been long-standing partners with FHI 360, and we're glad to be partnered with them as a Vine implementation partner. So we'll move on to the outline of the presentation. Today what we have in store for you today is we'd like to take you through the FHI 360 journey on how they've discovered challenges and really defined the solution. We'll also give you an overview of the system itself and end with business outcomes that FHI 360 has been able to realize. Before Paula comes on, to get us started, I'd like to tee up the topic a little bit. The reality today is that as technology landscapes in organizations are getting more complex, the number of line of business applications continues to increase. And with this increase in business applications, what has happened is there's a whole amount of data that is being collected and stored from all of these systems. And in most cases, these systems are disconnected and siloed for the most part. So one of the big questions that to think about is how much time does it take for employees to access all of these systems and really find the information they need to do their jobs better? Is there a better way to simplify the employee experience, to deliver information faster, and really, instill a connected workplace? These are some of the questions that we've been asking ourselves and sort of led to Vine as a product. And FHI 360 has been able to answer this through an intelligent and modern search experience. Without stealing too much thunder from Paula, Paula is going to take you through a little bit more about FHI 360's journey and cover their approach on how they arrived at it. So without much ado, I'll now hand it over to Paula. Over to you, Paula.
Thank you, Alfred. Hey, everybody. I'm Paula Pazdurka, Director of the Knowledge Exchange, the Knowledge Management arm of FHI 360. And for those of you that don't know us, FHI 360 is headquartered in North Carolina, and we serve more than 70 countries, including the United States. And we manage projects related to family planning, reproductive health, and education, along with a lot of other topics. And we have about 5,000 staff worldwide. All right, now back to the topic at hand. I'm going to share with you guys our process story or journey and how we arrived at the novel solution we call Vine. Way back when our lives were very different, in 2018, our beloved CFO challenged us to get rid of paper, become more digitized, and manage our documents. And we set to work. What we discovered really early on was that this was not the exact problem we needed to solve. We realized the problem was a bit different. We saw that we had some great systems in place that did one thing really well. We had a customer relationship management system, Salesforce. It's a great product. We had SharePoint sites for our documents. We had so many SharePoint sites. Maybe you guys can relate. And we also, at that time, had two standalone knowledge management systems. We had one that housed our project documents, our annual reports, our work plans, and then we had a separate system that had our project information descriptive details, like the period of performance, the beneficiary countries, the funder, the accomplishments, and our taxonomy. And the thing about these systems is that they weren't talking to each other. So we approached this new realization through a human-centric design lens and process. We had small cycles of iterative development, and we treated our colleagues like our customer. We leaned into this problem by observing our staff. We sat down or next to or virtually with, and they showed us how they completed their daily activities. And it involved so much searching and an opening and closing of the systems. And we asked, what are all the systems you need to go to? And how do you complete these activities? We then interviewed them, and we heard in their own words that they could be so much more productive if they didn't have to spend so much time system jumping. They showed us how they answered these basic questions, how they had to create cheat sheets, and how they had concerns of not even having the right answer because of duplicate information and concerns about the freshness of the information that they found. Our major observations were that they had to go to an average of 5 or 6 different systems or repositories to answer what was seemingly a simple question. That we had duplicate repositories with that varying freshness of information, and it was happening every day. And we kept hearing if they could find the single source of truth, they could complete more value add activities, and do more good. And this is why we find ourselves at nonprofits. We want to do our mission, which is improve lives all around the world. Hearing that invigorated us, and we exercised some extreme empathy, and we developed some powerful insights that led us to this innovative solution. We then circled in and thought if we could answer just a few key questions from each staff, we could make an impact on impact. These were the questions that we identified, and we created accompanying customer personas. We decided that we'd be super excited if we could answer right in the center of it all business development questions. Where can I find my capacity statements, capability statements? And from a project perspective, project staff person, where can I find all of my project documents, the final versions of those? From procurement, is my vendor being paid on time? Where can I find all of my contracts and modifications? And from an audit personnel, how do I respond to audits efficiently? We then developed an overall customer journey, which we connected to these statements with our process timeline. We asked, how could we approach this as a business development person, a project management person, a compliance officer, and we're considering all of this through this human-centric design lens to ensure that we're really addressing the problems that our colleagues laid out for us. We wanted to create an end-to-end experience that paralleled our processes, moving from pre-award to post-award and through the project lifecycle. We wanted our customer colleagues to be confident that the information that they were looking at was true and fresh. So we worked with them, we developed a proof of concept, we prototyped it, we piloted it, we checked our assumptions, and we kept iterating. We checked in with our colleagues every few weeks. And in parallel to working with our colleagues, we looked outside the organization and wanted to understand, how are other organizations solving this problem? And was it a problem for other organizations? And it is. Our challenge is an industry challenge. For all of us, the cost of finding information is preventing us from doing more good. The problem is expensive. And remember, remember, our CFO had challenged us. We spend a great portion of our day just finding the stuff that we need to do our work. Research supported our findings, and we are spending entirely too much time searching. On average, we spend about 2.5 hours a day, or 30% of our time, searching for information. And as an organization who wants to make a global impact immediately, we wanted to solve this. Besides the time and the money, there's a high cost of not finding information. It takes a toll on the people who want to impact the world in a positive way. Remember how through human-centered design, we're exercising empathy. We don't want to limit our colleagues on the positive impact they can have. We are an international development organization, and we take pride in how we support humanity and capacity building around the world. We want to contribute as much as we can, as soon as we can. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Raj Honda, who will share our technical solution and give you a demo.
Thank you, Paula. Hi, everyone. I'm Raj. I manage enterprise application design at FHI 360. And thank you so much for joining us today. I want to pick up right where Paula left off, which is 30% of the time is spent by average workers in just searching for information day in and day out. And this was exactly our problem statement 2 years ago as well, when we set out to build Vine. How do we reduce time considerably so that the time we can spend less time on searching and more time doing good for the community? So having our problem statement in front of us and knowing that search is a horizontal system, we wanted to design something that is helpful for everyone, inclusive of different roles, different personas, and different work streams in an organization. Now, why would we take on a task of doing a search tool when we already know there are many offerings that are available in the market? I mean, we all know there are usual suspects. There are Microsoft Search, there's SharePoint Search, right? Well, our analysis, when we leaned in, told us a very different story, which is in a traditional search tool, user is presented with many different results. The user has to analyze which out of those 10 search results is the most relevant. And even when the user finds a result, it lacks the important context. The result could either be just a document, or the result could either be just an information record. It becomes on user to collate those different search results with many other searches to build the context so that they can find what they are looking for. And I'm sure you guys know what exactly I'm talking about. It did not work for us, and it does not work seamlessly with the traditional search experience. We, on the other hand, took a very different approach. We wanted to design something that could answer your question with just one best result. In essence, we wanted to create a find tool more than a search tool. And that led us to design considerations that is an interplay of delightful user experience, entity-driven framework, and a customer journey principle that is personalized and contextual to a user. And you'll see that in a minute. As Paula alluded to customer journey, and like I mentioned, understanding FHI 360 customer journey is what helped us craft this solution. Here, what you see is a typical user journey for an FHI 360 employee. A proposal manager works on a proposal in a CRM. In this case, it's Salesforce. They store their documents in Office 365 library or Office Suite applications. Proposal gets converted into an award, and a contract management team works in CRM and some version of a contract management system. They also store their documents in SharePoint repository. Once the project execution begins, there is need to sub out the work to our partners, and the sub work is carried and recorded in a subword management system. And again, over the life cycle of the project, a project needs to procure resources, which is typically carried out in a procurement system. And again, the documentation is stored in various Office 365 suites. Over the term of the project, we are always collecting knowledge of the project. That includes technical documents, innovations, etc. And of course, archival is a critical pillar for any organization. So as you see here, with FHI 360 customer journey, we already had to bring together 6 different systems, and I'm not even counting many different SharePoint libraries. So how do we solve this problem? Well, we solved it by putting Vine right in middle of all the systems. As you can see, we have Vine that sits right at the heart of it, and it talks to all of the systems in a really intuitive way, and you'll see that in a minute. We have been able to connect our CRM, in this case, Salesforce, our financial system, a lot of Office 365 suite of applications, a homegrown subword management system, and how all these systems come together is what we're going to show you today. So rather than talk about it, let me just show you. So here it is. As most of you can already observe, the only UI element that we have on the application is a search box. This search box alone allows us to build a complex application that is able to connect various different systems, as you saw in the previous slide. Here in this text box, we can search on projects, proposals, procurement information, knowledge, but in a uniquely Vine way. So before I show you Vine, I want to go back and reiterate, why did we build Vine? Here, I'm going to show you a usual search experience in SharePoint. And again, here, you might be aware of a SharePoint search experience. I know I have a project called DRC Eagle, and I want to learn all about that project. I want to look at the project. I want to understand the documentation around it. So if I start typing DRC Eagle here, and I hit enter, and you will see that, let me do that again. What it presents me is a list of collection of results. And right now I'm looking at these results and I have no idea which link to click because it's a collection of information records, it's a collection of documents, but it does not give me context. And this is not the only page of results that we get, as you know, that there are many pages that a typical SharePoint search presents. So it did not work for us and it does not work seamlessly. Now let me show you the same experience in Vine. Here in the same search box, I'm going to start typing the same search result, DRC Eagle. And what user is presented here is just that one result that the user is expecting. And here you can see I just typed DRC Eagle. I immediately know it's a project because that's the entity that we have defined. It tells me a project number. It also tells me that this project is about empowering goals. Now, one thing I want to highlight here is user on Vine does not need to be specific with their search terms. Vine actually enables a full text semantic search understanding, which means that if I am not sure about a project number or a project name, but I just remember that the focus area of that project, I could stop typing and Wine would help me. So here I know I've been looking for a project in FHI that works on embroidery, but I do not remember my project number and I do not remember the name. But just typing few characters around embroidery, it tells me that this is what the project we are working on in Afghan. Now, going back to our customer journey, I'm going to start my customer journey as a proposal manager from a business development team. I'm going to start with same search, DRC Eagle, 3214. And you know, this time, because I'm a business development manager, I wanted to search from proposal. And the only result that I see is a proposal that is about DRC Eagle. So I'm going to click this. And unlike a traditional search experience, it did not present me any links here. What I'm seeing here is exactly what I wanted to learn. I'm looking at a proposal summary. So here, I can look at the proposal name. I can look at the proposal number. I also see who is the proposal lead writer. I can see the business unit. I can scroll down, look at the proposal description, and so on and so forth. But over on the top, this is not the only buttons that are available to me. I am in proposal summary. I hop over to proposal documents, and I'm looking at the proposal documents. Now, a couple of things to highlight here. What just happened in the background was, as I was typing the keystrokes, those keystrokes were talking to Salesforce in the background, brought me the exact proposal that I wanted, brought me the summary that I wanted to consume. And then when I hopped over into proposal documents, these documents are coming from a SharePoint library that has over 40,000 documents. But what a user on Vine sees is only the 5 documents that are relevant to DRC Eagle proposal. Now, match that with the traditional search experience. You have to bookmark several different URLs. You have to filter. You have to search in different systems. And then only you can get to the 5 documents. Here, I did not have to lift the finger to type my search again. All these documents are available to me because I do have permissions to these documents. And that's another underpinning of Vine. Vine does not store any permission stack. We depend on source system's permissions. We know who you are, who is logged into the system. We use the authorization token, and we only present the resources that you as a user should have access to. And once you are there, you can click on any document and the document opens right away for consumption. And again, no need to bookmark, no need to learn separate filter mechanisms, no need to search more. If I hop over to solicitation documents, here again, the same principle stands. These are different set of documents. This library is maintained by a different department under business development. They have their own permissions. I see these documents because I have permissions. And again, for the fact, I know the solicitation document library has over 30,000 documents, and we are bringing just the 6 that are most relevant for what you want to learn about. Similarly, I have appendices. Let's go back to proposal summary. Now, as part of our customer journey, I am a proposal manager looking at the proposal, but I did want to learn about, did we win this proposal? And as you can see right here, I can get to those answers really quickly. But I also wanted to learn, were we able to convert this proposal into a project? And how is that project going? So you'll see here a column associated project. It's telling me it's a project number 100179. And this is where we are using the entity relationship network to power these experiences. So I'm going to click on 100179, and you will see the whole app changes at context from proposal to learning about a project. Here I can see a very different UI where I have a lot of things to explore, but right now I am on the project summary. So as I scroll down, you will see that your search as an employee could have started with a project and not even a proposal. So when you are on the project, the same entity relationship framework is powering you to get to the proposal if you wanted to learn about the proposal. The other thing to note here is this might look a very traditional project summary fields, but even in these cases, you have different systems powering this information. This one is coming from our financial system. This one is coming from our budgeting system. Other things are coming from Salesforce and so on and so forth. But for the user on Vine, they do not have to think about those. Everything just works. Here in the project summary, I'm going to hop over to purchase orders. And you will see what happens here is we are looking at purchase orders from our financial system by just a click of a button. But every financial system has thousands of POs, but we're just bringing the ones that are contextual to DRC Eagle. So we changed from project to a PO, but behind the scenes, we also switched the systems to not look at Salesforce, but to look at our financial system and only bring relevant results. So here I have few options to click on. I'm just going to go into the first purchase order. And you will see, again, the same entity relationship framework powering these searches to go from one context to the other. So now we are into learning about the purchase order. I can see the purchase order details. I can see the requisition ID that led to this PO. I can see the PO lines. I can also see the requisition documents. And again, like I mentioned, that documents in our financial system are not stored in financial system. They are stored in Office 365 suite of applications. But we are bringing those together to provide the context, to provide a linear view of learning about your PO, learning about the documents. And since I have permission to look at this document, I can click on it and I can instantly learn what requisition led to this purchase order. Scrolling down, we also have the accounting side of the house as well. We're bringing receipts, invoices, and vouchers, helping us answer the question, is my vendor paid on time really, really quickly? And you can see that here's a receipt number, the payment status is paid, and the payment number as well. Now, I'm learning about this PO, and I am curious to know how are we doing on the vendor relationship. So you can see that this PO belongs to the vendor Star International LLC, and I want to know if this vendor already has a non-disclosure agreement set up with FHI 360. Again, same entity relationship framework powering to go between those entities. I'm going to click on this vendor, and we're going to switch to a completely different context. We switched from learning about a purchase order to now learning about this vendor. Here again, we get a purchase orders tab. And when I click on it, this time it's not bringing the purchase orders for DRC Eagle project, but it's bringing all the purchase orders for Star International vendor. That context switching is what powering is these seamless experiences. I also have setup documents if I wanted to see if this vendor has all the setup documents as required. But here you will notice something different. I see the list of documents, but they are not URLs. And that is because I do not have permission on this library to access these documents. So we do present user that there are documents, but you do not have access to look at them. And that's how the authorization and the identity management works itself on the source system's permissions. We also have another tab, suborder reports and NDA. In this case, we do not have an NDA with Star, and it allows us to take an action to set up the NDA as well. All right, so going back to the same DRC Eagle project, we looked at the project summary, we looked at the purchase orders. In similar fashion, we are connecting our subawards management system as well. All the work that we sub out to our partners, it comes into the same view to power those experiences. Award documents, again, a very separate library maintained by a different business unit with different permissions, but they all come together in one experience. Now I'm going to click quickly between these tabs, and you will see that all these are different libraries bringing the data together in the same view. This is SR425, These are subordered reports. In last couple of minutes, what you saw is I did not perform the second search at all. I just said DRC Eagle. By just that search, we've been able to look at the proposal. We've been able to move to a project. We looked at all the purchase orders. We learned about the vendor. We learned about all the award documentation, everything without doing a second search. I do want to talk about knowledge. So let me go to knowledge, and you will see here, all those columns are presented in the same fashion, but something feels different. And this time we have edit icons. This is something that we make sure that when we are presenting the aggregation of data, how do we solve the next problem of making sure that we have fresh data and people have one source to go to update their information. So what you're going to see here is when I click on project goals, it's going to take us to the source system, opens the form right away, and it's ready for edits for that data. So I'm going to take project goals as an example, and I'm going to put, this is for the demo. I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this record. And again, no more remembering different URLs, no more bookmarking. You're brought back to the same place where you went from. By this time, the edit icons are gone. What has happened in the background is we have kicked off a workflow for a knowledge management team to review this record because they are in charge of publishing and making sure the edits are in place and are authoritative. I see my entry here, and I see that because I am the one who did this, but other people would still be seeing the last published version before knowledge management team takes an action on approving or rejecting this. So bringing the aggregation strategy, making sure that there is hyper automation, making things easier for employees. Hopping over to documents, and this is something that we really like. Again, you can see the documents that are presented, only 8, but those documents are just from this project. As Paula was talking about, there were a couple of knowledge management systems in place. We retired them, we brought them together so that when you are looking for just your project documents, you should only be looking at 8 of them and not going through 100,000 library and putting a lot of filters there. But we did not stop there. We also wanted to make sure that the way we ask for this information is seamless. So here you say we have an upload document button. I will click on that and it presents us a very simple form. And something to notice here, we are not asking who you are, and we are not asking which project you are uploading these documents to. We have completely abstracted that experience so that the only thing that we need from a user is the document title, the publication year, and the document category, because we know you are already on the DRC Eagle project. We know who you are, and we upload the document seamlessly, but what happens in the background is automatic taxonomy association. So when the document gets uploaded, it's available for preview. We automatically tag without putting that on user's plate. Now, what I showed you in the last few minutes is just one modality that Wine powers, which is look at the information really, really quickly without even performing a second search in the whole session, take action on the data. But we do have another modality that we powers because of our aggregation strategy. We call it visual reports. The same data that is powering Wine also allows us to take into consideration how can we apply a visual and a very manipulative mechanism on top of it. So we took that data, we are presented with this view where users can actually manipulate the data in much more visual way. This has helped us achieve a major organization goal to have one source of truth and always have freshness to the content of our projects. This has enabled us to achieve more than 75% of healthy project data that employees depend on every day. And this is one example out of many where we have been able to accelerate the change, bring in more automation, and help employees with an aggregated view of the information in much more intuitive way. Here's another report, the same projects that we were looking for, but in much more visual interactive way. And the same we applied for collecting and automating the social impact for what we do. It's much more automated way of collecting social impact and also much more visual way of consuming the same data in the same fashion. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. I hope you liked what you saw in last few minutes. We have a lot more that we could not share because of the time constraints. As you can see, Vine sits right in the middle of all the systems and provides a lean and a fast interface to solve the problem by just introducing a simple UI element and connecting that all in the background. Just to go over it again, Vine provides a smart autocomplete. The user does not have to be specific in their searches. It just works. Vine is an entity-driven framework that connects to all of the known entities in the organization. This is what powers switching from proposal to project, from project to purchase orders, from purchase orders to vendor, and so on and so forth. And you saw that in the demo. With Vine, we deeply care about speed, and it's one of the foundational component that allows Vine to be lean and fast. And you saw how Vine provides a delightful user interface where I went through 13 or 14 different systems in the last few minutes without even have to doing a second search. And last but not the least, Vine is built with scale and security in mind. When we started Vine in FHI 360, we started with just connecting 2 systems, and now we are up to 14 different systems and libraries. And again, Vine does not maintain a permission stack. Rather, it depends on source system security as the source system owner intended it to be. A little bit about our underlying architecture. We started with a strong foundation with open and forward-looking RESTful infrastructure. We have a very secure and authenticated data layer. We use Azure for hosting, and we already implemented a single sign-on for identity management. On top of it, we have a lean framework that we built ourselves, and we use that framework to design the application and its interface. We are happy to dive into technical details more. You will hear that in a minute. Now, how Vine at FHI 360 has helped us with business outcomes, I'm going to hand it over to Carla. Carla?
Thank you, Raj. Hello, everyone. This is Carla Doherty from FHI 360. I'm the director of the Enterprise Services Technology team, and I'd like to talk with you for a few minutes before we close today about business outcomes. What I mean by business outcomes are those tangible benefits to the organization that justify our investment in the FHI 360 Vine solution that Raj just showed you. When we interviewed colleagues across the organization to understand the challenges better, we heard consistently that colleagues were spending as much as 25 minutes and logging into multiple complex systems to find basic information and documents related to a proposal, project, or procurement. With Vine, we've been able to reduce that time from 25 minutes to less than 2. With the over 35,000 unique searches that have been performed since we launched Vine, that means over 800,000 minutes. That is real time and cost savings for FHI 360. Vine has saved countless employees time so they can focus on the real work of FHI 360, the science of improving lives. And by connecting our systems, documents, and information in a meaningful way, Vine has delivered insights and other benefits that wouldn't be possible otherwise. Now, business outcomes can seem like sort of an abstract topic. So I have just a few stories to share with you that illustrate the impact Vine has had on FHI 360. These are stories from colleagues at FHI 360 who have used Vine to find information. When I think about boosting employee productivity, I remember the story of a project manager of a large global project. She said, I appreciate being able to get the project details from Vine, as it is much more time efficient, spares me emailing colleagues, and helps as I am on a different time zone. Why does she need information on her project and other projects? She's updating a country manual, writing a report, double checking the status of payment to vendors, lots of different reasons. When I read the words better customer service, I am reminded of the senior compliance officer in Kenya who told me he has significantly reduced the planning cycle for an audit. And because he can review country, project, and portfolio information in advance of an audit, the result is less time needed from country leadership. When I think about efficiency and cost effectiveness, I think about the IT director. That's me. And what I can tell you firsthand is that Vine has made the quarterly and annual accruals process manageable. I can find out all kinds of information about vendors and the status of procurement transactions quickly. The time spent on accruals has been reduced from days to hours. When I think about more precise decision-making, I think about a member of our legal team who shared with me that Vine didn't just save her time, it made it possible to determine which projects, countries, and people she needed to talk to about a new insurance requirement. At FHI 360, we understand from participating in NetHope and NetHope working groups that most member organizations are like FHI 360. You have a number of business applications and document repositories. So you understand the extensive training that may be required to teach employees how to use multiple systems effectively. And that this leads to a frustrated workforce who often complain about a lack of actionable data. This kind of a systems landscape often means high licensing costs, since you may not have an easy way to provide consumable information other than providing direct access to a system. Now, if you've joined us today and these challenges are familiar, we would love to talk to you about the possibility of your very own Vine. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the great questions that have been coming in. Thank you to NetHope for all the great work that you do. Now I'm going to hand it over to Alfred to facilitate our question and answer session.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Carla. I hope this has given you some insights on how you can improve employee productivity and really think about how employees can save time and find information in a faster and better way. We've seen a lot of questions coming through. We have about 15 minutes left, so hopefully we'll get through all of them. I'd like to start off with a question posted, bear with me a moment here, by Jesse Ginther, who says, please talk about how the employees embrace this, challenges, and the absorption of usage on the new system. Paula, do you mind taking this one?
Oh, I'd be happy to. We found because of the simple interface that a lot of employees, as Carla described in some of those stories, really embrace this. There isn't a huge barrier to entry, so it was really welcomed, and it was not a disruptive change. People could see the benefits right away. And for many of our employees, whether they were in finance or even other customer personas that we didn't necessarily fully develop, they really appreciated it, and they wanted to know, hey, when are you doing when are you doing more? I've got these data repositories and I would love for them to be integrated in Vine. It's going to make my work life so much easier. So there is that part. In conjunction with the rollout, we did actively do a campaign to make sure people understood the the information, how they could trust the information, and how it was the single source of truth coming from our source systems. And we do try to engage our employees regularly to make sure that they understand the new aspects of it, et cetera. But as far as the training and maybe some of the pushback you get with change, we did not experience that with Vine, as maybe you have experience with other technology rollout, because there wasn't something existing that was doing it. So in that regard, it was a super positive and has remained a super positive experience. I hope
Great.
I answered that.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right, we'll move on. The second question is FHI 360 able to streamline a successful to-be project proposal template?
I think I can answer that one as well if I'm understanding the question correctly. What we did do, if I'm understanding the proposal project question, is that we took the information in that you saw in the project summary, and we were able to put that into a past performance report. You're able to export that information into a Word document and incorporate that into our proposals without much effort or without reformatting, etc. Along with that, we were always curious about what projects we are utilizing in our proposals. We are a pretty big company. We have a wide portfolio that I only described very briefly. So in that regard, we ask what proposal you're working on so that we can get an idea of which projects are being used as project references in those proposals. So I also hope I answered that one. Carla or Raj or Alfred, if you have other things to add into that regard, or if you think I missed the mark, please let me know.
All right. We'll go to the next one in that case. We have a question from Jeffrey. Were you able to bring the security that was associated with the original records, that is Salesforce SharePoint, to the Power BI dashboard seamlessly? Or did you have to re-establish or build these permissions again at Vine or at Power BI based on the source permissions? Are there any key lessons, guidances to share? Raj, I think this might be a good one for you.
Sure, I can take it. Yes, I think like we mentioned, we are using authoritative RESTful infrastructure, which allows us to not only look at the data, but also see the authority token for the data. So when we are fetching the data, we are matching it up with who the person is logged in. I think same applies for the Power BI as well. We are depending on the same RESTful infrastructure to get the data there. I would like to understand a little bit more in detail if you had a specific question around row level security or just the Power BI general permissions. But we were able to do it, and I think that's why we depend on identity management, which is our single sign-on.
Great. I have a question from Stephanie Cott, who is asking about, how long did this full process take from design to final implementation? Can you speak more to the implementation? How did you engage staff? Can staff still use previous methods of searching for information? Paula, would you like to take a stab at that one?
Sure, I can certainly start us off, and then I think I'm going to kick it to Carla and Raj. So from the timeline perspective, and I'm nervous about saying how long I think it took. We did not take away any way that staff were currently conducting their activities. And in that regard, they could still go directly to those source systems and construct the information themselves. So, but again, kind of going back to the contextual information that Vine supplies, people just found that it was so much easier for them to do it through Vine that it was just sort of a seamless move, like, oh, I don't have to go to this SharePoint site. Now I know we get into those habits, and we certainly did not say that they could not do it that way anymore. So in that regard, we don't have that tension. As for the timeline end to end, we did pilot it, and we had an iterative development cycle. But I'm going to hand it to Raj and Carla, because I'm a little nervous that I have the timeline as of being shorter than it was. So I don't want to say that. So Raj or Carla, could you talk about the timeline from, I think we had
Sure.
a healthy pilot time, but one of you take that?
We
Go ahead, Carla.
did. We had a healthy pilot time for sure. But before I talk about the timeline, I did want to just add a little something about the search capability and whether we have users continue to use their old search capabilities. And I think what we found, which was very interesting over time, is that if your main workspace, for example, if you're in procurement and you're processing purchase orders all day in our financial system, then that continued. But by virtue of having Vine available to employees who were trying to surface information around procurements, that took a load off of the procurement team, because now there was a place where employees could go to answer questions. So the procurement team continued to work in the same space they were working before, and using the features there. Then in terms of a timeline, I think a lot of people talk about in projects the importance of really spending the time up front to plan and understand requirements and so forth. So that's really where we spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of time interviewing colleagues and really understanding the problem. And then we took a very agile approach, a very iterative approach. We built a very small proof of concept on paper and sort of surfaced that with some folks. And then we evolved it. And I would say, within a few months, we were able to invite people to use that proof of concept and help us make it better. And then that approach has really just continued, right? We started out with a few systems, and then we continue to improve it all the time. So I don't know if you want to add anything there, Raj.
No, I think I would agree. We depend on customer journey to understand where the solution roadmap is taking us. And then we, as Paula and Carla both mentioned, it was about the interviews. And then once we had the system in place, we only improved it to productize it. So now we're in a place where the amount of time that took us to connect the first system is drastically decreased now, which can be configured, which helps us to make it as a product.
Great. I hope we've answered the question adequately. We'll move to the next one. I have a question from Barbara Forbes. In fact, Barbara had a couple of questions. So how were the detailed categories set? Were external models like the common data model for nonprofits incorporated into category considerations? And the second question was, would you please expand on what makes a project healthy? I think, Paula, maybe you can give it to the stab and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think I'll take the second part first. So the knowledge dashboard that you saw today, that's based on the health of what we call your project's knowledge health, and it means, do you have documents uploaded regarding your annual reports? Do you have a lengthy project description? Are all of the fields that we need to know filled in, and have they been filled in a timely manner? We're evolving that concept, and so always interested to hear feedback. We want to make this idea of a healthy project beyond just the knowledge concept, but we're still working on it right now. And then what was the other part of the question, Alfred?
I can take the other one, Alfred.
Oh, okay, perfect, Raj. Thank you.
Yeah, so we are, our entity relationship framework is very flexible, and we understand the common data model is more prevalent in Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So we are inspired from that framework, but we have the capability for organizations who are using Microsoft Dynamics CRM to use the common data model to inspire to influence the entity relationship that we have. So they're very common. It's just about understanding the known entities in an organization and connecting it in a way so that those experiences can be powered.
Great. I know we are running out of time here, so I think we can take one more question. There's a question from Surya. Is there a social component in Vine to enable social search or other ways to knit people together? For instance, connect a proposal writer in Jakarta with a program manager in Colombo running similar searches in preparation for a very similar grant proposal to avoid wheel reinvention.
That's a
So
great.
I feel like you are part of the FHI 360 team. You are thinking exactly how we're thinking in the evolution of Vine. Definitely, we are very interested in that social component, as you said, and we're always thinking about ways to make to connect people more than ever, as we're all remote working or we're in a virtual environment. So not yet, but I would love for us to move that direction. And it's a really, yeah, definitely. Raj, you have something to add?
No, I would just add, I think the basic principles and the framework is there. As we understood the entities for projects proposal and the procurements, I think people is just another component. As you saw in the proposal summary, we know who people are working with, and we could have another Vine, which is just connecting people together and powering those experiences as well.
Just add all those P's together. Something near and dear to my heart. Alfred, back to you.
I'm sorry, I got muted. I think we still have time for just one more question from Barbara Phillip. How does the system differentiate between drafts or multiple versions of a document? There has to be some upstream governance about where the final documents are stored.
Yeah, I can take that, Paula, and Carla, please join me. We are connecting with the libraries, Barbara, depending on what provides the work in progress document and what provides the final documents. And as you saw me demoing it, some of the libraries that we have connected, especially for business development, those are connected for work in progress documents. And once, as a business development manager, you want to get to that document really quickly, it's already there for you for available. In Salesforce, there is a whole mechanism of when a work in progress document goes into a final document, and that's a place where we store all of our final documents, and those are appropriately marked on Vine 2 so that you know this is a final document. And all that happens on either on the CRM side or on the Office 360 suite of applications side. We know which one to connect based on our understanding of those customer journeys.
And I think we prioritized integrating final documents.
All right, it seems like we're out of time here, and that's all we can take in terms of questions. Thanks so much for those. Those were really wonderful. We'll provide responses in the Q&A in the webinar as well that you can refer to later. Thanks so much for your time. We look forward to follow-up conversations. As you can see, you can email us on connectvine@fhi360.org. So we look forward to those conversations. Again, thanks so much for your time today. Over to you, Madeline.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you to all of our speakers today. What a great presentation, such great information, great solution for many of us. Thanks again to the audience for all the great questions too. Really good interactive session. Please, again, we're going to ask you to take a moment to complete our webinar satisfaction poll. You should have a link to that in the chat window, and a window should pop up for you to complete that survey. It just takes a couple of minutes. Your feedback is very important to us. Look for that follow-up email, which will include a link to the NetHope Solution Center landing page for the webinar. You can go there, share it widely. The recording for the session will be loaded there soon. And again, thanks for attending today's session. We appreciate it and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody.